Well, hello there and welcome. My name is Jamin B, and this is a tutorial on how you can make a flower farm that's designed to collect a large variety of different types of flowers. This farm uses bone meal to generate the flowers, so you'll want a skeleton farm or some other type of bone meal farm in order to generate the large amount of bone meal that are required for this farm. It's also a little bit expensive, especially on hoppers and pistons, so that's another consideration. I will put the material list in the description. This machine is expandable. You can make it larger or even smaller if you wanted to. I think this is pretty much the optimal size for generating a large variety of flowers, but if there's some reason you needed to make it a different size, it's not really much of a challenge. This machine can also be sped up or slowed down fairly easily, so if you wanted to use less bone meal, it would obviously generate flowers less quickly as well. Then I can show you how to do that. It can be sped up as well. The problem with that is that the standard item sorters won't be able to keep up with flowers coming through that quickly, so you'd have to devise some other sorting system or multiple sorters per item if you wanted to do that. At its current speed, it generates about 55 to 60,000 items per hour, a little over half of which are flowers. If you sped it up, it would generate well over 100,000 items per hour. This farm was designed to work best in a flower forest biome. You can also use a plains or sunflower plains biome, but you will miss out on two different types of flowers. If you want to farm 2-block tall flowers, there are more efficient farms than this. And if you want to generate lots of one specific type of flower, like cornflower or blue orchids, then I'll link another farm by Ilmango that will do that more efficiently. This farm is designed to generate a large variety of flowers, so the flower forest biome works best for this. Once you've found your biome, you're going to want to pick a spot to place your farm. Anywhere where there is a 1-block tall flower, that is the same flower that would generate on that specific block every time. So the default farm size is 20 blocks by 10 blocks, so you're going to want to find an area that's that size that contains as many different flower types as possible. You want to focus on the flowers that are least common. These purple alliums right here, the blue cornflowers, and the white lilies of the valley are the least common. So any area you have that contains all three of those flowers will likely contain every other flower type as well. And then once you've found an area like that, you can bone meal each individual spot in the ground and until you get a flower, and that might help you narrow down the specific 20 by 10 area that you want to use for your farm. In my specific case, I might want to try and find some alliums that are closer to these patches of cornflower and lilies of the valley. But this is just a small sample area, and your biome will probably be much larger. So in your case, you might want to just find a different area that better suits finding these three flowers. I don't think you'd ever see anything quite like this. This has got to be because I created a super flat world, and it's set to the flower forest biome type. Normally your flowers would be quite a bit more random than this, but the concept is still the same. You want to enclose off an area that contains as many different types of flowers as possible. And it's a good idea to mark off the area physically with blocks. You'll note that this is actually a 12 by 22 area that I've marked off. So the grass will actually only be the inside area here. So the walls are not included in the flowers that I will end up as part of my flower form. So that means that there is only one dandelion. I could have moved it down a couple of blocks, but I'd rather have more lilies of the valley than a flower that I can easily get any other way. And you can often do that with poppies as well. Most of the time, those are pretty easily replaceable. But I've managed to fit every different type of flower into this area. Once you've got your area set up, you can build your farm up in the air, underground, or at ground level. It doesn't really matter. The flowers are bound to the X and the Z coordinate, and the Y coordinate doesn't matter. So at any Y coordinate for this specific block, this same flower will always grow there. So I'm going to build mine up in the air, so we'll just come up a bunch of blocks here. Just kind of to an arbitrary point right here, and we'll say this will be our grass level right here. It's going to be easiest if we start with our storage system and work our way up. So this is the front left corner of the wall that we created. This would actually be the first grass block. This is not included in the grass area. We want to come down 8 blocks from that. It's 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the 9th block would actually be the floor of our storage area. And then come forward 7 blocks. And this 7th block would actually be the front row of the chests. and then come over 2 more blocks and place a double chest backwards on top of it, place a hopper behind that, and then a double chest like this, and then hopper behind that, and then a double chest overlapping it like that, and then 2 more chests on top of that. And you're going to want to do this for every different type of flower that you're going to want to sort. That is going to be up to 11, although you might want to not include poppies or dandelions or anything like that. I'm going to set this up for all 11. There's no harm in making a little floor area here. When I did this in survival, this is where I set up all my shulker boxes. And this is also where I set up a nether portal to go back to my base. And we can get rid of all these extra measurement blocks here. We won't need these anymore. Now we're going to set up the sorting system. So starting with the second chest on this first row here, place a block on top of that, and then another block on top of it, and then a block behind it, and you can remove the first block that you placed, and then run a row of blocks all the way across for each of these 2 blocks. And then on the inside of this top block, facing towards the hoppers, you want to place redstone torches, like so, on each of these blocks. And then on the lower of these 2 blocks, again facing towards the hoppers, you want redstone repeaters. And then place a block behind one of these redstone repeaters, and then run a row all the way across for that. And then starting with these top hoppers, you want to place 3 blocks like so that cover up the redstone torch and repeater that we just placed, and run this all the way across. And then you're going to want to place a comparator facing away from the hopper on the block right next to the hopper, like so. And you do that all the way across, and then you're going to want to place 3 bits of redstone on each one, including on the lower block. So do that all the way across as well. And then we're going to want to place another hopper that points into these comparators. So it's got a pretty small hitbox. You want to really narrow it so you can see because of my resource pack, they're pointing forward. You want to make sure each one of these is pointing into the comparator. Not like that, all the way across. Now we can set up the actual filters, and we're going to need an item that's a filler item that will never run through the actual system. You can use redstone or something like that, but I like using renamed items just to make sure that they never run through the system. And you've probably got a stack of wheat seeds at this point, so you can just rename a stack of wheat seeds to something, anything, doesn't really matter what you name it, and just put that in your inventory. And then you'd set up each one of these flowers. So I've got the 11 flower types right here in my inventory. So you've set up the first item to be that item that you want to sort, and then the next 4 items are one of your filler items. The filler item has to be an item that stacks to 64. So that filter's set up, and then we just run across and do that for all 11 flowers, or however many you wanted to set up the filter for. Next, we want to set up the composters. And we want this whole section to be 16 blocks wide. Since it's 11 blocks wide right now, we want to come out another 5 blocks from this bottom hopper right here. And then we can place a dropper facing towards the right. And then replace all these blocks with a hopper facing into that dropper. And if you had less filters, then you would add more composters so that the total adds up to 16, not including this dropper here. And then place composters on top of these hoppers, and then place hoppers facing straight down going into these composters. Behind that dropper that we just placed, you want to place a solid block, and then place a temporary block underneath it, and then come back another 3 blocks, and we can remove that temporary block. And then next to these 3 blocks, you want to place another 4 blocks, like so. And then you're going to want to place a redstone comparator pointing out of the first solid block that we placed, followed by a redstone repeater, and then place redstone dust onto all of the other blocks that we just placed. And this is going to make it so that any bone meal that goes into the dropper is going to get spit out into a water stream that we'll create later. So underneath the dropper, place a block. It doesn't have to be glass. It can be anything. We're just creating the beginnings of a water channel that would go up like this. Like so. Place a block on top of it and just like create a water channel like that. And you don't need these blocks down there. And just leave it like that for right now. Next, we want to set up the on-off switch for the machine. So you can place this anywhere you want. It just needs to end up in the same place. And if you put it further away than where I place it, then you might need an extra repeater or two so that the signal carries. So I like to place it at the end of the chest here. So you can just place the switch right there and then run some blocks back behind it. We want to run it all the way up until the end of this area right here and then run it across and under there. I probably should have had you do this first, but it's not that hard to operate around this in survival. And then go another 4 blocks like so, and then place a redstone repeater, and that should go into a block, and place a torch on top of that, and then put redstone dust on the rest of the blocks like so, except you will need a redstone repeater on this block right here. And then the signal should be just exactly strong enough. And you can check that by flipping the switch, and it should turn the redstone torch off like that. And then we want to come up from this redstone torch, place another block, redstone torch, another block, redstone torch, and then another block with no redstone torch on top of it. Just leave it like that for now. You should have 4 blocks and 3 redstone torches. Now we're ready to set up the water channel that will move the items across the sorters. So we can start by placing 2 blocks next to these hoppers here. It doesn't have to be glass. None of this has to be glass. It can be any block that you want. And then place a double chest on top of that. And then run glass panes across all of these hoppers right here. All the way across. And then create a floor here. Again, any type of block you want. Across all of this, and then come back 5 blocks, including this corner here, 5 blocks from the chest, like so. And then you're going to want to build a wall around all of this to contain the water. So blocks like that, don't need this block. Block here, don't need this block. Blocks there, don't need this one. And then like so, all the way back. And then go ahead and end the channel here as well, like so. Now we can place water in this back corner back here, and then where the water current ends, it should be 3 hoppers over from the end here. We're going to place a packed ice instead of the regular ground block, and then you can place a iron trapdoor up here. You could place just a sign against the glass like here if you wanted, and then do the same thing. Place another water bucket right next to the trapdoor, and then where that one ends, place packed ice and iron trapdoor or sign or whatever you want. And there we go. And then you want to come back here to where we placed the first water and place another block up from that. And then come back an additional 7 blocks. So a total of 8. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you're going to want to build a wall around this one as well. Like so. And then you can continue the wall like this all the way up to your corner here. And then you can build a little wall there. And then on this side, you might as well just place your grass blocks all the way down. And then you can place water in this corner back here, and it should flow perfectly right up to there. Now we can start setting up the water channel that will come from the other side. So we can break this block right here and then place blocks all the way down. Keep on going until you reach this block right here, which is the wall of this other water channel, this upwards water channel. So stop right there and then place a solid block and then place another one in front of it like that. And then you want to come back another 12 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 10, 12. So this should be a total of 14 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now we can go ahead and place a wall around this water channel here. So just extend some more blocks as a wall all the way down until you reach the solid blocks over here. Do the same thing on this side as well. And don't place any water in this water channel just yet, but you can come down to this end and close off the water here with either a trapdoor or a sign. And then we want to come back down to these solid blocks that we just placed, and you want to place a rail on the end like this. And then you want to place 3 observers in a row like so, so that the redstone signal is pointing towards that rail. And then on the other side, you want 2 rails. These are all powered rails. All of these are powered rails. And then another observer pointing into that rail. and then skip a block, and then you want an observer facing the other direction, and then place 3 more rails, and then another observer pointing this direction, and then another rail. And then at the spot where we skipped a block, you want 2 more solid blocks on this end right here, and then a whole bunch of blocks all the way down over like this. And you want to stop. There should be a 1 block gap in between this grass here and the last solid block we have right there. And then we come over here and we place rails. We can place a redstone dust on this end right here, like so. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rails. And then an observer pointing this direction, like so. And then 9 more rails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rails. Observer. And then 1 final rail like that. All right, now we're ready to set up all the dispensers, so we can come back to this side and skip 2 blocks from this T intersection here. And on the 3rd block, on the 3rd rail, place an observer facing straight up. And then skip 4 more blocks. Should be right after this observer. Place another observer facing straight up, 4 more blocks. Observer facing straight up, and then come back 4 more blocks just past this observer, another observer facing straight up. And then you're going to want to put observers on both sides pointing outwards, like so. Might have to build some blocks out in survival in order to get that to work. And then on this side facing towards our sorting system, place a solid block at the end of the observer. And then place dispensers facing straight up at the ends of all of these, like so. And you might want to prime these all up with bone meal, because it might take a while for the hoppers to spread all the bone meal to all the systems. It might be easier to just preload all these with bone meal. All right, now we're finally ready to finish up this water channel here. We needed to get that redstone out of the way first. But first, let's place an observer facing straight up on this end rail right here. Might as well place a rail on that one as well while we're at it. And then you can build a water channel here around these 3 observers here, like so. And we don't need the corners necessarily. And then build another block right there, like so. And then we can place our water down. And it should go across those 3 observers and then down. And then again, same basic concept, packed ice, trapdoor or sign, water. And then we're actually, this won't leave us enough room, so we'll actually cut this one off a little bit early right there. And then like so. And then place some water, and that should work just fine. And then over here, we'll run some more blocks across all these observers. Should be 8 total blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we can extend this wall up here, like so. Wall there. Wall here. This one's actually going to be dirt, like so. All the way across. And then you can place water in this corner right here, which should extend perfectly right down to there. All right, now we can set up all the hopper chains that'll feed into these dispensers. So place a hopper on the side of one of these back dispensers, and then run a chain all the way up to the front here, and then another hopper facing into this one. So you've got 2 hoppers side by side. Run them all the way over until they're crossing over this first water stream right here, and then do that for all 4 of these. In the previous device I showed back over there, I ran a hopper chain that ran all the way across all of these, but honestly that doesn't work particularly well. It just does not supply the items fast enough. I almost recommend you save yourself the hoppers and just set up chests on top of each of these right here, and then we'll leave this one alone. If you wanted to though, you can just set up a row of hoppers instead. You would point this one down and then run these all the way across, all the way across, all the way to here. But again, honestly, I recommend that you won't have to resupply them that often. So I recommend you just resupply all 4 of these individually. We'll leave this one alone for now because that one will be resupplied with the bone meal from these composters down here as well. All right, we're finally ready to place our grass. So we can just do that. We've already got the guidelines set up to run the grass all the way across. And we can remove this guide block now here as well, and then just all the way down to this end as well, and then the rest of this all gets filled in with glass. And then place another block. I'm going to use glass, doesn't really matter, but place another block here on this end as well. And then I will fill in all the rest of this with grass. Once that's complete, we can place our pistons. We can start on this side here, and we can place a piston facing towards the grass block. It'll be one block away from it, and you can use the hoppers as a useful way to get those ones set up. Just run it all the way across on both sides here. And then on the other side, we're going to have to place some extra blocks in order to help us. So we'll come out a couple blocks here, remove this block, place a piston like that, and then you can use that piston as a guide to place the rest of the pistons all the way down the line like so. And then starting over at this end right here on the second piston over, you're going to want to place a solid block, and then you'll actually probably need to place more blocks and then come back in and place an observer facing straight down into that piston, like so. And then come over, skip 2 blocks, and do the same basic thing. Observer facing straight down into it, skip 2 blocks. Do that all the way down. And on that side as well, again, start with 1 block over, like so. And I accidentally broke that block. That's fine. And then when we get down to the end, I'll show you. Be careful when working on this side. The pistons will fire and they will move the whole block of dirt all the way over. So just be aware of that. And then the last set of block and observer will be placed on the last piston here, like so. And that's fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. Don't fall like I did. And then there we go. I recommend that you set some lights up here in order to keep mobs from spawning in this area. You cannot use torches or lanterns on these blocks because when the pistons fire, they will break those, and so you don't want that to happen, but you can use any solid block light source. You can use jack-o'-lanterns, you can use glowstone, you can use sea lanterns, and I recommend you just fill in all of these blocks with whatever solid block light source you want, and that'll make sure that the area is really well lit. All right, and then we're going to place solid blocks on top of all these light sources, but let's actually start over on this end, like so. And then we're going to place rails across all of this. The reason why I started at this end is because I want the floor to be shifted towards that side when we're done with all of this. So placing the rails on the observers will shift the floor. So we want to move it over towards the other side. So we've got a gap here on this front side, and the glass is up against the piston on this back side. That's the default state we want to leave it in. Like so. Before we get too carried away, let's go ahead and set up the timer that will run this thing. So you want to come over here to the right side where we've got this redstone dust that's next to this rail, and then come under that block and then 4 blocks back like so. And these 2 blocks are going to be temporary, and then we can remove this one right now as well. And we can place comparators on the 2 outside blocks facing outward. Place a hopper on either one of the other 2 blocks, doesn't matter which one. Place a hopper facing into that first hopper, and then remove the first hopper and place another hopper going into the second hopper. So we got 2 hoppers that are pointing into each other. And then place a block on the end of this redstone comparator right here. Put a redstone dust on it like this, so these will be symmetrical now. And then place pistons, sticky pistons, on the end of the redstones. It's got a tiny little hitbox, it can be hard to place sometimes. And then place a redstone block on either of the 2 hoppers, doesn't really matter which one. Don't put anything in these hoppers just yet because we want a way to turn off the circuit first. So come over here to this redstone torch, this top one, place a block next to it, and then the rest of the blocks all the way over to this redstone dust. Place a block on top of that redstone dust, and then a repeater going into that last block that we just placed, and redstone dust all the way across. And if your switch is switched off right now, then this block should be, this redstone should be turned on, and that means that the device is turned off. So we can place items into the hopper, place 3 items into the hopper, doesn't matter which one, they will go into the correct hopper, and the timer is all set up now. Apparently setting up the timer did fire off the dispensers once. I didn't realize that would happen, but it's not really much of a big deal. So we'll just move on and let's connect the piston rows here to the timer. So we've already got an observer facing straight up with a rail on top of it on this front side. Place another one on top of that. Observer facing straight up, and then a solid block, and then a rail, like so. And then on the other side, you want to do the same basic thing, except we don't already have an observer there. So observer, rail, observer, solid block, rail, like so. And now everything's connected. These rails up here will not power all the way down to the end, so we need to set up some observers to extend the signal. So come here to the 3rd observer down from the right here, and just after that, place an observer facing towards the left, like so. And then just before the last observer here, do the same thing. And do this to the other side as well. So 3rd observer down, knock out that rail, replace it with an observer facing this direction. And then just before the last one, observer like so. You can test this now if you wanted to, but it will use up bone meal. I'm in creative, so it doesn't really matter much to me. So if I power on the machine, it should fire all the pistons, and it should fire all the dispensers as well. So you should see a nice clean firing like this. Now we want to set up some walls in order to hold everything in. So on top of this row of glass here, we want to set up another row of glass, like so. And then we want to come out 2 blocks past the end. So we want to leave this glass right here and then have another level like that, so it kind of stair steps up. This extra layer of glass here is where the flying machine will sit and rest. So we'll come all the way over to here, and then we want to place glass over this gap here next to the pistons, like so, and then come all the way down to the end. And then the same basic concept over here. You want to leave this row of glass here and then do another row of glass like that. And then on top of all this glass, you want to place leaves, and leaves won't stick to the slime blocks. So you got to use leaves here, and then just do that all the way around the whole border as well. On this left side over here, we want to place 5 additional wall blocks right here towards the front of the machine. And then we're going to place the return station for the flying machine. So on this last block that we just placed, just above it, knock out the leaf block, and then place an observer facing outward from the machine. And then on this wall block right here facing straight up, we want to place a piston. And then we're going to need to come out, that's a sticky piston, and we're going to need to come out 2 more blocks to give us a placement block to place another observer. So these observers should point into each other, the redstone part should point into each other, and then place a repeater facing into the machine right like that. And that's a return station right there. On this right side over here, we want to place glass blocks, or any other block really, across this entire row here. And then 5 more against the back row like this. And then place slime blocks on top of these 5 blocks towards the front. And then slime blocks on top of these 5 blocks right here. And then place a sticky piston facing into this slime block right here. And then let's place an obsidian block right there, so that'll keep the machine from moving right now when we don't want it to. Place a sticky piston into that so that they're facing like that. And then we need to place observers facing straight down. This can actually be a little bit hard to set up. So you want to place them, oh no, they go straight down into the slime blocks like this on these 4 blocks. So right there, place an observer like so. And then right there, like so. And if we hadn't placed an obsidian block, when you remove the glass above the observer, it would fire off this flying machine. But yeah, so the flying machine's all set up there. And then we want to set up the takeoff station for the flying machine. So we want another observer right up against this observer facing outward like so. And then we want a solid block out the back of it, redstone dust on top of it, and then a repeater on 2 ticks. Make sure it's on 2 ticks. If it's only on a single tick, it will actually break the flying machine and you'll have to rebuild it. And then we can remove the obsidian block right there, and we want to place a trapdoor right up against this repeater like this, and that'll actually send the machine off on its way. And you want to test the machine right now anyways. Make sure that when it reaches this end, it should turn around and go back, and then it will actually keep on going because we don't have a signal stopping this. So this will actually run for a minute here. So we know everything's working. So let's actually stop the flying machine now. We can do that by coming down to here and placing a redstone torch on the back side of this block right here. And place a block on top of that, a redstone torch on top of that block, and then a block on top of that redstone torch. And when you place redstone on top of that block, it should connect. If you've got your machine turned off, you should have a solid signal that should hold the door open, and then when the flying machine comes back, it will actually stop there. And so we can stop and make sure that that's what happens. There we go. We're almost done here. We just need to connect these composters down here to the input for the bone meal line. So place a hopper on top of this hopper, and then 3 more hoppers going into that. If you wanted to do the whole hopper chain, you'd have this hopper pointed straight down, and then a hopper chain going all across this row where the chests are, and then this one would actually be pointed to the left and not straight down. Again, I don't really recommend that. It takes way too long for everything to resupply, and if you're running the machine constantly, it will not resupply fast enough. So I recommend just setting up 4 resupply lines like so. And then we want to place another hopper right there on top of this hopper, and then a double chest like so, and that where you can put bone meal in this chest here to supply that section. And then run this water channel all the way up like so. And then run it across like that, and then place a water block right there. And then we want to come on down with some kelp to turn all of these into source blocks like so. And then you can remove this glass block down here, put another glass block next to it, and replace it with a soul sand, and that'll turn it into a water elevator. And then probably want to get the kelp out of the chest if it ended up in the chest at all. And then we want to put some sort of roof on this. I like using iron trapdoors. Glass is fine, slabs are fine, whatever you want, just like that. So now any items that are composted, the bone meal will go up here and it'll feed into this, and it'll go before any items in the chest. It will use this bone meal first, but it will only resupply this line. So you'll need to resupply this line a little bit less often than these lines over here. All right, so that's all there is to it. Let's just go ahead and give it a try now, and everything should be working great when we turn it on. It should send the flying machine on the way, and the ground's getting bone mealed, and everything's getting broken, and the flying machines are collecting it, and then we can watch it go down to the water channel. We can watch everything get sorted. Mostly only the wheat seeds should make it down to the composters, which is what we want, and it actually generates flowers really, really quickly. So we'll start to see these filters getting filled up, and then items will start going into the chest. I generated a lot of flowers in just like 10-20 minutes of using this, so this is a very fast machine. If you wanted to expand this to include a larger area, I recommend you use this as a basis and then just expand the grass down from this side, and then you can expand all the rails and the pistons and everything like that. And then you can expand these rails right here, add extra dispensers, put a 4-block gap in between each of the dispensers so that you're covering a 5x5 area. And you will need to add additional observers that will continue to fire. Like whenever the signal dies out, you're going to need to add another observer down on this end. And then you'll just have to move this water channel, figure out another way to run the water channel into the same basic area, and then move this wall and the return station further down, and that would work just fine. If you wanted to make this smaller, then you'd have to do something with this sorting system, like run it sideways or something like that, and then run the composter hoppers back over to this section, and that would work fairly well. But you could fairly easily just cut off half of this machine and it would work basically the same. And if you want to make this faster or slower, you can do that by messing with the timer over here, and you can just remove or add items. So if you remove an item here, you will have 2 items left in here. I don't recommend going down to 1. There's not really any point because of the timings of everything else. It doesn't really go much faster than if you had set it on 2, but it goes quite a bit faster when you set it on 2, as you can notice. But again, the sorting system will not keep up, and quite a few flowers will end up in these composters, and that's kind of a waste of bone meal unless you're actually dealing with all the flowers. And if you add items, you can slow it down. So if we add the item back, we're at 3. You can go 4, 5, 6 if you wanted to, and it would be quite a bit slower. But, you know, same basic principle involved, and it would just use less bone meal, and it wouldn't create flowers quite as quickly. So that's my small flower farm. There is a world download in the description, so if you want to open that up and take a look, you're welcome to do so. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and have a good one. One final note, you may notice something like this going on underneath the farm. This is just a visual glitch. You are not losing any items. You don't need to worry about it.